Like the declarations that Elvis Presley is alive, the claims that Adolf Hitler didn't die in Berlin have continued since the announcement of his apparent death. There are many reasons for this, beyond just random sightings and suspicious claims. So, where might he have gone? 10. Patagonia, home away from home. The Patagonia region of Argentina was known to the Nazis long before the start of World War II. Its population was made up of German immigrants and their descendants. The belief in Nazism was rife, and remained so for years after the war. Even the local schools taught the same beliefs as the schools in Germany under the Third Reich. It would make sense then that Hitler would choose Patagonia, or have it chosen for him, as a place of refuge. By the mid-1940s, reports show that the area was closed off like a cult compound, with necessities delivered from the outside once a week. Interestingly, the waters come right up to this region and are deep enough to accommodate submarines on the coast. Also, there are purposely built and strengthened airstrips commissioned by the Nazi regime years before the war's end. To some researchers, this is an obvious sign of preparations for an exodus of the Third Reich's most powerful and trusted ranking officers. If that was the case, then such an exodus would surely include Hitler. We already know that many other Nazi officials found their way to this part of the world. 9. Secret tunnel systems. So how did Hitler get out of Berlin in the first place? According to some researchers, Hitler used the secret tunnel system that ran under Berlin and connected to the bunker. Through various levels and connections, he and a small team emerged, largely hidden in plain sight, in one of the train stations. From there, they made their way to a waiting plane. Supposedly, the station used to exit the tunnel systems is known today as Luftbrücke Station. While filming Hunting Hitler for the History Channel, the producers uncovered the remains of the tunnel system using special sonar equipment. Furthermore, although the dates don't match exactly with other researchers' claims, these producers uncovered records of increased activity from a nearby runway at Tempelhof Airport on April 21, 1945. The last official sighting of Hitler had occurred one day earlier, on April 20th, his birthday. 8. Submarine Journeys and evidence of way stations, Canary Islands. Some of the most intriguing clues to a predetermined plan were the vast amounts of fuel and supplies stored at a purposely built way station in the Canary Islands. It is believed that Hitler flew to Spain shortly after arriving in Denmark, with Franco offering to provide Hitler safe passage from Spain to Gibraltar and then onto the Canary Islands. From there, Hitler and Eva Braun boarded one submarine, and other high-ranking Nazi officers boarded one of two others. In a further twist, the Germans sent a group of submarines toward New York at around the same time, and appeared to feed false intelligence that they were planning to launch a V-2 missile from them as one final attack on the United States. It was enough to draw the Allies' attention to track this group of submarines in the North Atlantic, leaving the three heading to South America virtually unnoticed. 7. The numerous sightings by many people. In summer 1945, 15-year-old Catalina Gomero was living with the Eichhorn family, who were known supporters of Hitler. Years later, she recalled that a man had stayed with them. She both recognized and was informed by Mrs. Eichhorn that he was Adolf Hitler. Gomero went on to say that she had memorized Hitler's voice during the 4 days that he stayed with the family because she was so fascinated by his presence. According to her, Hitler had continued to telephone the Eichhorns until 1962. According to many people who claim to have seen Hitler during this time, his mustache had been shaved off and his hair was considerably grayer. Ansan also stated that the former leader of the Third Reich looked ill and in distress. 6. The almost apprehension on Neas Beach. On the evening of July 27, 1945, the police had received reports of unusual activity along the coast. Flashing lights were going back and forth from the Neas Beach to a point not far from the shore. A small police unit arrested a German man who was using Morse code to signal an unidentified vessel in the waters. They interrogated the man for most of the night. By the morning of July 28th, the man had admitted to aiding a German submarine that wished to unload on the beach. Whether Hitler was at the farmhouse is open to debate. but there was certainly evidence of activity involving heavily armed German soldiers and some kind of delivery from a German submarine. Of course, the order to release the soldiers without any follow-up is suspicious in itself. 5. Martin Bormann. Perhaps the person of most interest in the high ranks of the Nazis was Martin Bormann. Slowly, he moved any person of influence away from Hitler during the war years, and thus became Hitler's most trusted confidant. Bormann appears to have been the brains behind Hitler's escape, including where he would go and how he would get there. That is, if you subscribe to the conspiracy theories. And with Bormann, there are many. According to some researchers, Bormann made his way to Patagonia after Hitler's resettlement there. Bormann relied on contacts within the Vatican to travel south to Italy. From there, he supposedly left Europe. 4. Hitler's death in 1962. According to the claims of Simon Dunstan and Gerard Williams in their book Grey Wolf, Adolf Hitler was in his 70s when he died in his bed in February 1962. He had been long abandoned by his wife, Eva, and by virtually all his Nazi henchmen. These claims are allegedly based on the papers of Dr. Otto Lehmann, who treated Hitler in the final months of his life. The papers were reproduced in Manuel Monasterio's book about Hitler's life in Argentina. According to Lehmann's notes, Hitler's health rapidly declined in the early weeks of 1962. The doctor often heard moans and cries of anguish and despair from the room in which Hitler spent most of his time. Supposedly, Hitler suffered a paralyzing stroke on February 12th. He died the following day after falling into a coma. 3. The pilot who flew Hitler to Denmark. Earlier, we mentioned that Hitler escaped his bunker through the tunnel systems under Berlin and then continued to a waiting plane. Captain Peter Baumgart, a former Luftwaffe pilot, claimed that he flew the plane. He stated this during a trial in which he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for SS membership. He maintained that he flew Hitler, Eva Braun, and several other high-ranking officers from Berlin to the Danish town of Tonder in May 1945. Upon their safe arrival, Hitler shook Baumgart's hand and transferred a piece of paper into it. When Baumgart looked at the paper later, it was a check for 20,000 marks. The pilot was ordered to return to Berlin. Although he wasn't sure what happened to Hitler after he left, the rumor was that Hitler had boarded a submarine bound for South America. 2. FBI documents and media reports. Many FBI documents have become declassified since the end of World War II. Although none of them conclusively prove that Hitler escaped from Berlin, the sheer number of previous classified reports about Hitler sightings tells us that the FBI took them seriously. And these are just the ones that have been released to the public. These reports date to the immediate aftermath of the war, suggesting that the intelligence services at least entertained the possibility that Hitler's escape was genuine. Many newspaper reports that were based on intelligence reports to journalists also suggested that Hitler escaped from his bunker and arrived safely in Argentina. 1. The assistance of Juan and Eva Braun. Some of the more unsettling claims about Hitler's escape to Argentina concern the support he received from then-President Juan Perón and his soon-to-be wife, Eva. She was also known as Evita, the same woman portrayed by Madonna in a movie years later. Juan Perón was more than sympathetic to Nazi ideology, if only for monetary gain and power. It is claimed that Eva Perón was even more enthralled. She allowed fleeing Nazis safe passage into Argentina using her status and influence. In exchange, she accepted treasures, jewelry, and even money stolen from Jewish families who had been murdered in the concentration camps of Europe. The Perons were close friends with Hitler and supposedly met with him several times following his arrival in Patagonia after the war. Perhaps this relationship explains why the Necochea police unit was ordered to stand down in July 1945, when it appeared that they were one step away from the biggest arrest of the 20th century. That's all for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging content like this.